All right, looks like we're live. Welcome, fellow muckrakers and Michiganders. My name is Michelle, and today is Monday, February 27th. And about a week ago, I stumbled upon an article on Project Elephant, which is about the electric vehicle battery company Gotion coming to Big Rapids and purchasing land just north of Big Rapids. This led me tumbling down the rabbit hole, and when I was done, I was disturbed. So I'm going to jump right into this article, and I want to thank everybody who sent me information. Please continue to do so. I appreciate it. It's better to have more muckrakers so the truth could come out that much quicker. So without further ado, I am going to jump right in to this article that I was sent. Like I said, came out of Detroit News, Monday, February 6th of 2023. State records show culture of secrecy and job creation talks. A battery maker's plans to build a sprawling plant near Big Rapids required 36 non-disclosure agreements with legislative staff, executive branch employees, and the elected officials tasked with awarding nearly $800 million and tax incentives, state records show. The agreements, obtained by the Detroit News through a public records request, included 11 lawmakers, nearly 20 legislative staffers, and several officials within Governor Gretchen Whitmer's administration, all of whom signed agreements that last 5 years and include a running list of projects, memos, and information blocked from release to the public, paying the money to aid businesses. The records released to the news 4 months after they were requested, 4 months, give a glimpse into the culture of secrecy surrounding negotiations for corporate subsidies for such companies as General Motors, Ford Motors, and the battery maker Gotion, an American subsidiary of a Chinese company. The legislature has appropriated $1.8 billion to the Strategic Outreach and Attraction Reserve, SOAR, fund since creating the program and a little more than a year ago. Since creating the program a little more than a year ago, and has transferred about $826.9 million so far to provide first-of-its-kind cash assistance to corporations, promising the creation of jobs. The state records also disclosed for the first time past code names for multiple economic development projects that state officials have been courting in recent years. The news reported in early 2022 that 13 lawmakers had to sign NDAs to get the SOAR fund off the ground in time to secure a $6.5 billion investment from GM for electric vehicle and battery plants in Michigan. But the new documents show the NDAs netted more individuals than just those lawmakers and encompassed more information than any one project. Among the items, some of the state NDAs barred public officials from speaking about were at least 20 projects being considered for business incentives and a 2021 memo regarding a phone call between Whitmer and the CEO of electric vehicle maker Rivian. The conversation, according to several of the NDAs, was supposed to include a discussion of Michigan's direct sales ban, a controversial policy enacted under Republican former Governor Rick Snyder to stop startup automakers, such as Tesla, from selling vehicles directly to consumers and bypassing Michigan's dealership system. Senator Thomas Albert, the Lowell Republican who led the House Appropriations Committee last year, signed one of the non-disclosure agreements in November of 2021, but said he would not agree to a similar contract in the future. The agreement did not shed light on any meaningful information about SOAR projects or aid the legislator's goal of providing oversight and accountability for taxpayers, he said. The legislator should consider ways to improve transparency and accountability in the SOAR process. And based on my experience, non-disclosure agreements don't benefit the process, Albert said. It's not clear how many lawmakers in the 4 months since the Gotion deal was finalized have signed additional non-disclosure agreements related to SOAR. Michigan Economic Development Corporation CEO Quentin Messer said the NDAs for government officials are necessary to maintain confidentiality and protect information that the MEDC needs to consider for a company seeking taxpayer assistance, information that could be used by a competitor in a negative fashion if released publicly. Businesses are making bet the company investments and can't risk premature disclosure, he said. Companies are telling you things that could potentially materially impact, if they're publicly traded, their share price, their stakeholders, and frequently deliberations that may not come to fruition, said Messer, adding that the NDAs are commonplace among economic development efforts across the U.S. So it's commonplace, it's okay. The economic development chief also argued the SOAR fund had other transparency measures built into it, such as the need for the full legislature to appropriate money into SOAR and then a final sign-off of the House and Senate Appropriations Committee to transfer those funds into specific programs as projects become public and gain Michigan Strategic Fund approvals. Anytime a decision is made, Messer said it's going to be made before public bodies. Lawmaker NDAs growing. While 13 lawmakers initially signed NDAs when SOAR was created, as the MEDC was courting GM, only 11 were involved with the Gotion project and had their agreements amended to include Project Elephant, the code name for the Big Rapids area development. Most were signed between October 21st, 2021 and November 15th of 2021. Those lawmakers include Albert, GOP former House Speaker Jason Wentworth, Republican former Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey, former House Democrat Leader Donna Lisinski, and former Senate Minority Leader Jim Anik. Lawmakers who now have leadership positions this term, such as House Speaker Joe Tate and House Minority Leader Matt Hall, also signed NDAs in 2021 that appear to still be active under the 5-year duration. Tate, Democrat from Detroit, did not respond to a request for comment left with a spokeswoman. Hall, when asked about his NDA, noted his agreement had already been reported, but acknowledged the list of items added to his NDA had grown since then. He said his knowledge of the projects in the pipeline spurred his opposition to Democrats studying a potential diversion to corporate income tax revenue into SOAR to avoid a possible income tax trigger. When I'm saying to you that the people of Michigan should get this relief, and that's the better value for the taxpayers, that should carry some weight for you guys, said Hall, Republican Richland Township. A spokeswoman for Senate Majority Leader Winnie Brinks, Democrat from Grand Rapids, and Senator Sarah Anthony, the Lansing Democrat who chairs the Senate Appropriations Committee, did not respond when asked whether the new leaders had signed NDAs. Anthony, when approached by a reporter, said she couldn't answer the question. Brinks' chief of staff, Kathleen, first of all, why couldn't you answer the question? Like, who do you work for? Do you work for the people of the state, or do you work for the globalist utopians? Brinks' chief of staff, Kathleen O'Reilly Barhat, was among the staffers who signed an NDA with MEDC in 2021, when she still worked as chief of staff for Democrat former Senator Curtis Hertel, who is now Whitmer's legislative director. Senate Minority Leader Eric Nesbitt, Republican from Porter Township, said he had not signed an NDA with the MEDC, but Nesbitt's general counsel and policy director signed the agreements in 2021 when they worked for Shirkey, records show. Code names revealed. Among the projects listed in the lawmakers' NDAs are several that are redacted because they're not yet finalized, as well as some that have already been announced. Crazy, you don't get to find out until it's finalized. For example, the agreements include a ban on disclosing information about Project BMS, the code name for a deal with Ford Motor Company that gave the Dearborn automaker $100.8 million in SOAR funding. Stellantis, the automaker formerly known as Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, invested $2.5 billion in 2019 in the conversion of 2 engine plants on Detroit's east side into the new Jeep assembly plant. That project received about $55 million in incentives and was dubbed Project Peregrine Falcon record show. Just double checking, making sure everything's going. Project Zany Bread was the name of GM and South Korean battery maker LG Energy Solutions' planned EV battery plant near Lansing. The project was part of a $666 million SOAR money awarded to the two companies through GM and LG's joint venture Ultium Cells. Project Art referred to the generic drug and self-care product maker Perrigo, who received a $2 million Michigan Business Development Program grant in 2020 to move its North American corporate headquarters to Grand Rapids. Roughly a dozen projects remain redacted in the NDAs obtained by the news. One item listed in the non-disclosure agreements, Project Nova, included potential money for a company whose name was kept confidential from the MEDC and lawmakers, the two groups agreeing to the NDA. Some projects, RFPs, are led by site selectors or consultants that keep company details confidential from all state economic development agencies interested in potentially competing for the investment, said Courtney Overbay, a spokeswoman for the MEDC. In this case, we were not made aware of the company name. Staffers sign off on NDAs. This is where it's really important for Project Elephant. When the 11 lawmakers signed their initial NDAs in 2021, at least 17 of their staffers also signed agreements, including one who would go on to speak about the Gotion deal on the gubernatorial campaign trail. I don't know why that word just looks... Anyway, former state representative Shane Hernandez, Republican from Port Huron, had finished his terms in the House and was a staffer at the time he signed an NDA in 2021, promising not to divulge details of Project Elephant, the code name for the Gotion deal, and other pending projects. But on the campaign trail last year, Hernandez, Republican candidate, Tudor Dixon's running mate, decried the deal as corporate welfare to communist China on Twitter, a reference to the Chinese-controlled battery makers' incentives in Big Rapids. Hernandez told the news he signed the NDA as part of his job on the House Republican staff, but, like Albert, he said the agreement didn't give lawmakers much information on the project ahead of time. The Gotion project was announced publicly in September, less than a month after Hernandez was chosen as the Republican lieutenant governor nominee. At that point, Hernandez considered it public knowledge. I don't think I said anything that wasn't shared in a committee hearing or in the news somewhere, he said. All the NDAs include exceptions for discussing project information that is already in the public domain. The MEDC said it couldn't comment on the specifics of Hernandez's case, but noted each NDA has various penalties and recourse written into them. Another NDA was signed by staffer Austin Gorelli, Deputy Legislative Director for Democratic U.S. Representative Alyssa Slotkin of Lansing, but only after the Gotion project had already been announced publicly. Gorelli appears to represent the only federal entity to engage in such an agreement with the state, at least as it relates to the Gotion deal. Slotkin told the news in October that she had reservations about incentives to the company, in part because it is a subsidiary of a Chinese company. On Friday, Slotkin's office said the Congresswoman believed it was important, as part of the Michigan congressional delegation, to learn more about specific economic development projects like this to better understand their impact and if there are ways to help from the federal level. To be part of the conversations, MEDC required Congresswoman Slotkin and members of our staff to sign an NDA, said Austin Cook, a spokesman for Slotkin. MEDC has a lot of power, it seems. Maybe we should look into them. Executive Office NDAs most comprehensive. Some of the most far-reaching NDAs signed with the MEDC were those signed by several private entities, the Executive Office of the Governor, the State Budget Office, and members of the Michigan Infrastructure Office within Whitmer's office. It's a lot of offices. That's government for you. The Executive Office NDAs contain the longest list of items barred from public disclosure, in part because the agreements date back the furthest. Among the items prohibited from disclosure were charts and briefing memos dating to 2019 for companies such as Stellantis, Magna International, and Perigo. They also list roughly 20 projects being explored through SOAR, including 12 that were redacted from copies provided to the news. The Michigan Infrastructure Office NDA also exempts portions of a briefing memo related to a call between Whitmer and Rivian CEO R.G. Scaringe, on February 16th of 2021. Among the sections of the memo that could not be released was the entire direct sales issue section. The Republican-led legislature under Snyder passed a law that prevented newcomer auto companies that use direct sales, such as Tesla and Rivian, from selling outside of Michigan auto dealerships, a policy that was seen to largely benefit the state's auto dealers and establish domestic and foreign automakers. Tesla sued the state over the policy, and in January of 2020, Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel reached an agreement with the company that allowed the automaker to sell directly to customers if it used a subsidiary and transferred vehicles titled in another state to Michigan. The Michigan legislature later that year attempted to codify the carve-out in law so it would apply only to Tesla, but it was reportedly blocked by GM, Ford, and the United Auto Workers Union on the argument that it would give Tesla an unfair advantage. Whitmer's office declined to comment on the 2021 call with Rivian, which uses a direct sales model. In 2021, the governor defended the non-disclosure agreement signed by her office as the price of review and proprietary information to construct deals in a bid to retain and attract businesses to the state. Ultimately, all the terms will be aired as decisions are made at the strategic fund, but in the initial stages, that confidentiality is important, Whitmer said in 2021. They're never going to engage with us if we don't participate on those terms. Well, then screw them. Why do they make the rules? Outside NDAs last 10 years, additional confidentiality agreements with Consumers Energy, a law firm, and the city of Big Rapids will last twice as long as those with lawmakers, with each non-disclosure contract lasting a decade. Consumers Energy and ITC Holdings Corp., a Novi-based electricity transmissions grid firm, are offering about $52.5 million in incentives to Gotion. Consumers also is pre-approved to offer the Chinese company a large industrial electric rate for new or expanded loads over 50 megawatts. In its NDA with the state, Consumers lists 10 proposals for various projects being explored by the MEDC, including Project Elephant and 8 others that remain redacted. Big Rapids City Manager Mark Gifford said he considered the state's request for the NDA commonplace. Gotion will not be located within Big Rapids, but Gifford said the city wanted to be part of the conversations around the project and had to promise confidentiality. It's something the industry values in terms of them being able to talk to public officials without becoming immediately public, Gifford said. How is that a thing? Okay, so now that you have the information, I'm going to give you my thoughts on this topic. I tried to withhold as best I could so that you could get the information first. First, I want to say I'm a concerned local. So I am not an expert on anything except for maybe internet research. And even then, it's a weak claim. But still, the point is I went down this rabbit hole and I looked at a lot of information. And this outlines just a little bit of what I'm worried about. Why is it so secret? There's a lot of money involved in this. Why is the MEDC in control of all this? Who are they partnered with? What is going on? These are all questions that we need to ask ourselves. If you think that this is okay, the secrecy around all these projects, if you think it's okay that they don't even ask us if this is the kind of industry that we want to bring here, then we're never going to be on the same page, to be completely honest. I detest the secrecy. To me, it's proof that they think we're idiot plebs and that the globalist utopians know better, and we just need to trust them, and that ain't gonna happen. So I would love to know your thoughts. Again, I'd like to thank everybody who has sent me information. Please continue to do so with anything related to Project Elephant. I'd love to know your thoughts. The tactics being used by the people that are for this plant, that are for Project Elephant, are detestable. Already there's name calling because it is a Chinese company, and some people are concerned about that, as they should be. Another thing you need to know, it's both the left and the right. It's both red and blue. It's Democrats and Republicans. It's both sides of the aisle. The left wing and the right wing are just wings to the same bird. We need to be careful of what's going on. We need to be aware of what's going on. Please let me know what your thoughts are. The next video that I'm going to share is about the confidence lost in the township supervisor over battery plant talks, Big Rapids Township. I think it's important that we understand what's going on. I'm going to continue to stay on this topic. So if you're interested in it, please subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can stay updated, and like the video and share. I appreciate you watching. So look out for my next video. Thank you.